It's gonna happen. Uh, yeah, but if people write where they're at, and while we work on that, I'm going to show you what I'm drinking. So, as much as this looks like booze, oh, I guess I'll wait actually until the map's off the screen because it looks super cool. Um, but yeah, it's very exciting. Oh, lots of US people. Looks like the Australians are still asleep, enjoying their Saturday lie-in. And the Europeans have gone to bed like reasonable people because it is 1 a.m. in most of Europe and like 3 or 4 a.m. in Moscow. But yes, oh, that's very exciting. Oh, there's someone in Europe that's still awake. I'm so sorry, but thank you. I hope that you can go to bed soon, unless maybe you are someone who likes to be awake at this time of day. I don't understand being being awake at this time of day, but I'm glad that some people like it. Man, it looks so unbalanced on the map compared to normal. Normally we have at least some Australians. All right. Oh, that's very cool. We have a lot of pins today. So thank you all for coming and spending a little bit. It's actually incredibly nice weather in Portland today, and I went on a run. I'm very proud of myself because I've really been slacking in quarantine, but I made myself go exercise today. And I went to the park and it's out of control. Like, no one's wearing masks. Everyone's out with there was like 4 soccer teams on the like soccer field. I will say there was like a martial arts class and they looked like they were social distancing because I guess doing as long as you're not doing combat martial arts, it's very easy to social distance. So they seemed like they were doing like a good job of it, and a lot of them were wearing masks. But man, the mask rate I would say was like 50%. And this is in Portland, which is like pretty liberal because apparently in America we've turned masks into a political issue. Anyway, but I went to the park today and everybody's very excited about going outside. So, but I managed to stay social distance. I ran with a medical mask on, and I'm not going to say it was pleasant, but I like to think that it is improving my lung capacity and possibly making me more able to survive a respiratory illness if one does befall me. So, but what I am drinking today is actually really exciting. So, regular viewers or listeners probably know I don't drink alcohol, but this is bourbon flavored tea. So it is caffeinated, but it smells exactly like either extremely cheap bourbon or very expensive bourbon. It has those like floral notes that I feel like are sometimes like the floral and woody notes that whiskey has, and then like really high-end whiskey has, but a lot of the like mid-range stuff, I feel like it kind of gets muddled. I think the mid-range stuff tastes better. Anyway, it's been a long time since I've drunk bourbon, but I can tell you, this smells like the floor of a bourbon bar. So, but this is also, it's in a space glass cat glass, which is a very lovely glass that I have from a local sandblaster. So Brianna says, I need to know where this is or where to buy it. So it is actually going to be released as a Oh My Dollar branded tea. I am looking like it's going to be a mid-August release date. It should be pretty reasonably priced. I'm going to release it as a loose tea. It will have cats on the package. So I'm super excited about it. Yeah, I actually got this as a sampler from the wholesaler. But yeah, I'm like stoked about it. I've wanted to do I've wanted to have non-alcoholic whiskey brand for years, because I really like whiskey and I find it extremely hard to find non-alcoholic options that have kind of that savory taste to it. Most mocktails tend to fall in the very sweet side, and I never really liked sweet cocktails anyway. So I'm really stoked. This, I will say, it doesn't have that sharp aftertaste that on, when you're like, if you've drunk whiskey before, you'll have like a really sharp aftertaste on your palate, really with any kind of liquor. And I will say this is very smooth, which if you're going for the feeling of drinking whiskey neat, then you're not necessarily gonna get like that same punch. But it smells exactly like bourbon, so I'm really excited. This wasn't meant to be like a spawn. I'm actually just so excited about it, and I thought I could show it off. I brewed it like a regular teapot, but then I put it over ice, and it's cold. It's definitely like the smell is very intense, but I would say the flavor is kind of like a little, like it's like a step down from the sharpness that bourbon would be. I know I just used a lot of very weird, conceited food words, but anyway. Oh, thank you, Joe, for coming. Now we have an Australian, and now we have 3 continents. Yes, I'm extremely excited about it. Also, Ash said very cute glass. I think it's very possible that I'm also going to do Oh My Dollar glasses from the same company. This is a local sand blaster in Portland, so I'm pretty excited. I really like making products, and it's only a little bit because then I get to write them off as business expenses. Latitude says, feels like I am working in the tea shop again. Yes. Jeremy says, yeah, and any savory non-alcoholic drink tends to be kombucha, which I don't like. Yeah, I developed an appreciation for kombucha actually before I stopped drinking. Because kombucha has the tiniest bit of alcohol in it, like really tiny, like negligible, but it's actually enough that I tend to feel pretty woozy if I like drink an entire bottle of kombucha and then sit outside in the sun, then I will feel like, oh, it's super low. It's like less than, I think it's less than 1%. It's less than 0.5. Like it's less than fake beer is in Europe or whatever, but it just doesn't really work for me. I will say this has the same disadvantage as kombucha, which is that it is a black tea, so it does have an amount of caffeine in it. So that's the only bummer. I, obviously would like to have this at the end of the day, but I also don't want to drink black tea in the evening. So that's been I drank some of it when I was like working at like 10 in the morning the other day. I was like, oh, I need some tea. And I made the bourbon tea and it just felt wrong because it smells so much like bourbon. It felt like I had filled up a mug with bourbon and was like drinking it at my desk at 10 a.m. And it felt like I was doing something wrong, despite the fact that I was most definitely not drinking alcohol on the job. The tea mixer wholesaler that is making this blend does have some other mocktail blends that are on the less savory side, but also don't have caffeine. So they have a fuzzy navel one, which I've tried. I think I'm going to start with just the bourbon version as like a Oh My Dollar kind of branded one, but I may release some of the other ones if other of them are excited. So, yes. Anyway, also like it's I'm going to do a super small initial run just because I kind of want to see if people are interested in it. Obviously, I haven't sold food products before, so I don't know, but I do know that everybody on the My Dollar forums really likes food, and a lot of people don't drink. So maybe people will like it, and if they don't like it, then that's fine. I just bought myself like 50 pounds of bourbon tea. It's fine. I'll drink it eventually. Yeah, okay. Do we want to talk about budget stuff, or we'll just continue the food theme and I'll show you what the donut is for today. So this is a horchata twist, which horchata is like a type of kind of spicy non-dairy milk. And it appears to have like glazed sugar. No, it has salt on the top. It has salt on the top, which I'm super stoked about. So this is the donut. It's probably like less visually exciting than the one that had a straw sticking out of the top, but I'm really excited about the donut. We'll do it after I talk about the budget because that's what we're gonna do. Maybe we'll take a break after I talk about rent or something. So, I guess the overriding thing. Ooh, you had a horchata donut from Blue Star once. I didn't know that they had made one. Um, Latitude asked if the tea is iced or warmed. So I made it warmed. Um, and then I made it warm and then I put it over ice. So it is cold now. But if I pour more of this, this will be warm because it was made with boiling tea. I want to try to make some sun tea so that I can like cool it and put it in the fridge because I definitely prefer it over ice. Claire says that there's something that you need to tell me. Consumer Reports copied me. Oh, Claire says they made they read the latest magazine and they had a whole article about prescription drug prices, including a section specifically about RA drugs. Well, I'm so glad that I already informed you, and honestly, I would like Consumer Reports to do more reporting on RA drugs, so they can copy me all they want. They could hire me to write some pieces on freaking consumer drug prices, because I would love to write for Consumer Reports about how much of a highway robbery it is. I think a lot of people I've expressed before, I'm trying to get better at doing like more long form radio journalism that falls into the camp of doing actual journalism and not just advice. And one of the pieces I'm working on right now is actually about a cystic fibrosis drug that came out late last year. And I'm looking at how different countries are doing it, but I'm particularly looking at how it is affecting American consumers and American healthcare consumers, because we're consumers in this country of healthcare. We aren't patients. So cystic fibrosis, if folks don't know, is a disease that is genetic. Usually people get diagnosed right after birth, but sometimes they have late onset cystic fibrosis. And it's a genetic mutation where it causes your genes do something that they're not supposed to, and they create a lot of mucus. So most people with cystic fibrosis end up with very bad lungs, which means that obviously right now they're very concerned, but in a lot of ways they're actually doing better because they've been living their whole lives in fear of respiratory infections. So there's some stats where they're actually getting like a lot less COVID-19 because they already wear masks and wash their hands. Anyway, cystic fibrosis, previously, when they first kind of discovered what it was in the 1930s, 1940s, the average lifespan of someone with cystic fibrosis was, they would die before they were 5, generally. They discovered the gene mutation in the 1990s and actually identified what it is. There's actually a couple different mutations, which is relevant because people with different mutations are eligible for different kinds of treatments. And last year, a drug came out called Trikafta, or triple therapy, which is a gene modular drug. And it was developed by a company called Vertex Pharmaceuticals. And it is essentially life-changing for about 90% of COVID patients have the gene mutation that is eligible for Trikafta. And another 10% have the other 2 types of gene mutations. And those folks, some of them are helped by this other drug that had come out just shortly earlier, and then some of them are still waiting for it. And it isn't a cure, but it is improving lung capacity in a lot of the people that take it up to 30%. A lot of people that have gotten on it have gone from being the average lifespan for someone with cystic fibrosis is in their late 30s. And now a lot of these people are now looking at possibly retirement age. So it has been kind of transformative. It also cost $313,000 a year in the United States because America. This is to recover the cost of research and development by Vertex. But the the thing is that the research and development was almost entirely funded by the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, uh, which is, of course, mostly a group of people that are families and survivors and people with cystic fibrosis that do fundraising for cystic fibrosis research. So I'm not entirely sure why they're allowed to set their prices at that level. So anyway, I'm doing a more patient-focused story that is about like how people are shifting care. Currently in the United States, only cystic fibrosis patients with the right gene mutation over the age of 12 are eligible for it. And then it is, some people with cystic fibrosis have a lot of trouble with their liver, and it can be bad for people that have trouble with their liver. So even of the category with the gene mutation, there are some people that it's just not going to work for. But yeah, it's both really exciting. It is getting approved. It should be out next month or 2 months from now in the UK. The NHS was on a very long fight with Vertex about how much they were willing to pay for the drug and to get it approved. So they settled for an undisclosed amount. I am still confused about why the NHS is supposed to have open data about drug prices, especially as a government agency. And normally I can just click through on their website and find drug prices and what the NHS pays to a company for a drug. And not what the consumer pays, because the consumer pays the same flat rate for prescription medications, and it's free for people in certain categories like disabled folks and students and low income and older folks. Otherwise, it's £12 a month per prescription to the consumer, but obviously completely varies based on the drug. And the NHS bargains somewhat, sometimes by country, but sometimes for all the countries on the NHS, they will bargain with the drug companies about how much a drug will be. They were locked in a very long discussion over Trikafta. It actually only became available in the US in 2019, widely available at the end of 2019. However, there were some people who were compassionately given it earlier, which were folks that were at the stage where they were very close to needing a lung transplant. Some people may actually be ready for their second lung transplant. Usually, if you have severe cystic fibrosis, you will need a lung transplant at some point. So there's a possibility that on Trikafta, people may not be on the path to double lung transplants. So anyway, I'm mostly doing a patient-focused story, but I am very interested in the drug prices. I'm sorry I got so off track here. Anyway, if Consumer Reports is listening, I am very knowledgeable about prescription drug prices. Pay me. I like how I'm like angry at them, even though I've literally never pitched them a story. So I know one freelance writer who wrote for Consumer Reports for like 20 years, and that was their like main freelance gig. They did like one regular thing in Consumer Reports. Consumer Reports is super expensive because, like, as a magazine, as a consumer, because they get you when you're looking to buy a really expensive thing, because that's when you're willing to pay for Consumer Reports. So, yeah. Katie says, I think you just taught me more about the prescription drug market than I've ever learned before. I mean, I'm glad, I guess. I also am sorry. I could talk even more about like what happened with Trikafta at the federal level, because it got like all these exemptions as a special class of drug. It got fast tracked. It got this thing called orphan drug designation. Anyway, it'll be on the podcast. Whenever I finish with the interviews for the episode, it'll be on the podcast. So you can listen to the podcast if you want not just me ad-libbing about prescription drug prices. All right, who wants to look at my budget now? Claire says, I figured it was expensive because we have to subsidize all that research. Yeah, see, that's what they argue. That's what the prescription drug companies argue. However, quite often we subsidize the research as taxpayers, because a lot of these companies get work off research that is done at public universities. They work off research that gets NIH grants, which is also federal money, and they work off research that's done in foreign countries by universities. And so, yeah. Oh, Claire was talking about Consumer Reports, not drugs. Never mind. I won't go too deep into the rant. Anyway, I think 2 live streams ago, or last live stream, I talked about the blood of the crabs that is $15,000 a pint that makes my drug really expensive. That's actually part of why my drug is really expensive. The other part is just the wild consumerism and capitalism of the pharmaceutical company. So, yes, all of it does sound very terrifying and corrupt. Latitude, you are correct. Because it is. I'm gonna refill some bourbon tea. Now it's not gonna be cold though, sadly. All right, let's talk about my budget. So, I think the big thing that I kind of want to preface this with is that one of the reasons that I think it's important to show this is because a lot of people, I see people on kind of both sides. I see a lot of people that are making middle-class incomes or even high-class incomes that are under the impression that it is impossible to live on the kind of salary that, I was living on last year, for example. I also think there are a lot of people who see people, especially like personal finance bloggers and FIRE community people, and they see these savings rates of like 40% and 50% and 60%. And they don't realize how high of an income that person often has. And quite often people are not comfortable sharing their income, but they are comfortable sharing like their savings rates or their expenses. And quite often people aren't comfortable sharing any of it. And I am extremely open about my finances. And I think that it's very easy to get caught in the comparison game with a lot of this. And I just want to shout from the rooftops that I'm making a middle-class income right now. I'm actually making almost exactly the median household income right now versus the median personal income, which is actually lower than what I am making right now. So I'm like firmly in the middle class at the moment. Part of the reason I'm firmly in the middle class is because I own my own business as well as working a full-time job. But I have never had a job that's paid this well. And technically, I had a job that paid the same amount, but I worked like 80 to 100 hours a week in that job and was miserable. And so the hourly wage really didn't work out the same. And then I also wasn't running a business at the same time because I couldn't for conflict of interest reasons. So, because it was a political job. So I'm now working, I work in technology. I'm not a engineer by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just like a very talented with Excel. So I work on a very specific type of spec, but the work I do is somewhere in between like a service desk where you would be doing like tickets and customer service queues, and then a business analyst. So a lot of the work I do is moving data sets around in like SQL and Excel and working within like a web software. So I don't do particularly, the work comes easily to me, but I do what would be considered a entry-level job for the industry that I'm in, versus when I was working in nonprofits and I was managing people and running like $2 million budgets. I am like the lowest bottom rung at the organization I work at. I work at a company of about 18 people. I have previously been in charge of way bigger budgets and made, almost half of what I make now. So this is really a switch from the private sector and changing industries from nonprofits that's allowing me to make what I make now. So my salary is $50,000 a year, and that is technically a salary. However, I am what is considered non-exempt, which means that if I did work overtime, I would be paid time and a half for that time. However, I'm not allowed to work overtime, and we track all of our time to the minute in my job. So we do a lot of subcontracting and we bill a lot of things to clients. So I have to track everything to the clients. So I know exactly how many hours I work at work. And then additionally, I run my own business, which is Oh My Dollar. Some of what we are soon to release is some bourbon tea, but most of what I sell is books and stickers. And then the Personal Finance Society that supports my show. And then my show has programmatic ads on it. So that's the overview of where the money comes from. So this is what my June expenses were. Oh, and I would say from Oh My Dollar, it completely varies. Obviously, a lot of income has gone down because I used to make a lot of money from speaking income. And I'm not currently going to conferences and speaking at conferences because pandemic. Although I'm about to start being someone that does actually go to conferences virtually, and I'm doing a little bit of paid speaking gigs that way. So, but last year, Oh My Dollar was my full-time job for almost all of last year, and it made me around $36,000 gross. However, you can watch the live stream I did many months ago. That was how I lowered my income by $30K. There's a cat next to me. She was knocking things down. She's being lighting director. So I essentially ended up only paying taxes on about $8,000 of that income, thanks to cost of goods sold. I bought an entire print run of books last year, so I bought like 1,500 books, so that was a huge chunk of change. I did a lot of traveling to conferences, so I had a ton of overhead, as well as paying for my health insurance every month. So I actually had a very low adjusted gross income last year. It was less than $8,000. But I didn't actually have to live on less than $8,000. The total amount I spent last year, I think, was closer to $17,000 altogether. So that was like my total expenses for the year, except for business expenses. That was my personal expenses. So, Aaron, can we get the June 2020 expenses on the screen? He's on a cat goose chase right now. I think he's trying to get the cat to come join. So this was my June 2020 expenses. Can you make it bigger or no? It's fine if I cover my face. I'll just like lean to the side. Okay. So this was the total amount that I spent in June. And I'll kind of walk through some of the categories. There's some other kind of things on the screen. Is it blue screened right now? Is that why some of it is out? Yeah. It's fine. Boop, boop. Read it. You can read it. So my overall savings rate was 61%. So I calculate my savings rate on my post-tax income, and that is because it's very hard to calculate my pre-tax income during the year, simply because I do take so many tax write-offs, and I often will leave money in my business bank account for future expenses. For example, I am about to buy a wholesale order of bourbon-flavored tea, and so I will leave money in that for expenses in the future. So I will usually, I just look at what my pre-tax income was at the end of the year because I do have a business. So it was 61% savings rate, but that's my after-tax income. My tax rate right now is I have upped my withholding at my day job in order to make up for my business income, which is one thing that you can do if you really want to avoid having to do quarterly estimated tax payments. If you have a W-2 job, but you also have some side hustle income, you can essentially up your withholding. And I have to sing the praises of this calculator. I will try to stick it in the links below for people after the live stream. But the IRS finally has a calculator that makes sense for figuring out your withholding if you have multiple jobs or if you have side hustle income or other kinds of income. It actually works. So previously, it really was not good. And you could always withhold like slightly more. You could just like pick either a flat dollar amount or a percentage and withhold more. But the Aaron actually just put it in the chat. So if you are on YouTube, the chat works. The only things you need are your last pay stub and last year's tax return. It is extremely helpful. So you may still have to obviously estimate how much you expect to earn from your business. But if you have a general idea how much you're going to take home from your business, you should be able to figure out, and it will give you an exact amount by pay period you need to ask for. And your day job, whoever plays HR, whoever's responsible for running payroll, they will be able to do that extra withholding for you. So you just have to ask them. And if they don't know how to do that, I mean, I've worked at a lot of places where like the person who does HR is like, just like logs into paychecks once a month and tries to run it. Just tell them that it's there. Be like, no, you can do this. I'll find you. We'll find it together. But if you have like regular human resources, you should actually probably be able to do it like on your online account. So that was my overall savings rate. As you can see, my hours worked is actually a lot lower for June. And that is because I worked my part-time job that I was working 15 hours a week. I ended it halfway through the month, so that is only representing the really schedule I do not recommend that I've been on since late November, where I was working a full-time job, 15-hour-a-week job, which actually ended up being around 20 hours a lot of the time, plus running my business. I don't recommend that. That's dumb. But I have income from that job for half the month. So I will not probably be able to save 61% of my income next month, simply because my baseline expenses are kind of locked in. So that was why my hours worked. And then I also took a week of PTO after I quit that job, just to like lay on the floor and recover from the very long work schedule I have. So overall, 175 hours. You could compare that to the month before. And I think I worked 303 hours that month, which is too many, and I do not recommend that. So, yeah. Can you go to the next one, Erin? So this is like a closer up view of total expenses. My rent is $615. That is 40% of the total rent on our 2-bedroom in Portland. That is because the person who lives with me, who is also running the stream, makes a lot more money than I do. So we split rent, not even proportionally. I would pay like $1 if we split the rent proportionally. But we... Not that bad. It's not quite that bad, but it is, I would pay less, but this is the amount that I feel comfortable with, contributing. So I could do, now that my income is a lot higher, we could do 50-50, but considering that Erin's income is still so much higher than mine, whatever, might as well save that money instead. My health insurance right now is actually $277 a month. However, it seems to restart my contract every time I update my income. So I was very concerned about having it restart my contract with the health insurance company and having it reset my deductible and out-of-pocket maximum. So I'm not screwing with it, and I will make it up at the end of the year. So right now I'm paying $204, and that is because I am still getting a subsidy based on like a $40,000 a year income. And it's like a $70 subsidy. So instead, I'm actually just saving money to the end of the year, because I'm way more concerned about having to pay $7,000 out of pocket again. And this is one of the few things that if you underpay, even though they reconcile it at tax time, there is no penalty. So I will end up owing $73 times 12 at the end of the year, but I'm putting money aside for that all year. So, and I am still paying for my own health insurance. I am offered it through my job. They actually will pay for a high deductible plan completely. However, their year starts at the end of July, and I couldn't opt in. I talked about this on a previous live stream. Because my drug is so expensive, the out-of-pocket costs that I would have had to pay for my drug are much higher than just continuing to pay for my health insurance myself for the rest of the year, because my drug is dumb and expensive. So then utilities come out to pretty much $75-ish every month. That breaks down in our, it's $32.50 for our commons, which includes our water and kind of, I guess, them cleaning the hallways of our apartment building. It does not include trash, however, though, and our trash is $7.50 a month. So we essentially pay $40 on top of our rent each, and that's split 50-50 down the middle. And then I don't pay for internet because Aaron's job pays for internet in his house, and I'm not going to argue with that. So previously it was $20 a month. However, the price has gone slightly up, and we've upgraded the internet because if a publicly traded corporation is paying for our internet, they might as well pay slightly more. And then that also includes our electricity bill, which does vary month to month. But it ends up being about $27 to $30 a person each month. We do have like a roll-up air conditioner, and when it is extremely hot, we will run it, and that is probably causes the biggest swings. But it's still only like a portable air conditioner, so the swing doesn't tend to be more than like $5 a month in the hot months. We're very lucky. We live in a 3rd-story apartment in a pretty dense apartment building. And we almost never have to turn on the heat, even though we do have electric heat in the winter, which is great. So our heating bill rarely spikes unless there's like a really serious thing. That is probably way better. Yeah, and then household goods, $15.39. Don't remember what that was. It was probably detergent or toilet paper or something like that. And then $11.92 on my bike in June. I finally taped my handlebars, which had tape hanging off of them to the point where people would comment on it. Friends would see my bike on the street. This happened 3 times. Friends saw my bike on the street, and I have a custom bike, and I have bikey friends, so they know my bike. And they texted me to tell me I needed to replace the handlebar tape on my bike. So it was very bad. But I kind of used it. I justified it as it was a way for people to not steal my bike, and people wouldn't know that I actually have a fancy bike because it looked really crappy. And it didn't actually impact riding it in the winter because I wear gloves. Katie said shading works, but it didn't actually work because here's the thing. I totally did not in any way fix it. And it looked that way for 8 months. And, but I finally did it because once it got nice outside, I'm not wearing gloves on my bike anymore. And it actually does suck to grip just cold metal handlebars. So I finally bought some tape, and it was $11.19 to get some cushy tape. It doesn't look very good. I wrapped it myself, and I'm not very good at wrapping. And I have bar end shifters, so I can't tuck the ends in, or bar end brakes. So I can't tuck the ends in. Anyway, it's dumb. We're not going to get too deep into it. And then I spent $34 on clothing. This was a used Pusheen robe. I regret zero. I got it from Poshmark. $15 on coffee, which was coffee for home. And I believe oh no, it was not coffee out. That's a separate category. So that was coffee for home. We have been kind of alternating between buying a bag from a local roaster and then also buying the cheap fair trade stuff from Trader Joe's every other week, which is essentially we want the fancy coffee, but we don't quite want to spend $30 a month on coffee. So, and we do go through an unreasonable amount of coffee because I drink 3 cups a day. I'm sorry. Hair. I learned how to curl my hair. I bought curlers. That's it. I got things. I'm never getting a haircut again. So I've now accepted I may have to learn how to do my hair because I can't just go pay someone to cut my hair and look cute. I have to do things now. Home decor, $51.99. I bought myself a full-length mirror. And the reason I did that was because I need a reason to take outfit selfies and put them on the internet. Since no one sees me in person anymore at all, I have to get motivated to get dressed because I own a lot of nice clothing. So that is the entire reason I got a full-length mirror. And it was only $50 to get a full-length mirror, which was half the price that I had seen. I got it from Target. And it's great. It stands on its own because we literally don't have anywhere on a wall to put it. It's still not in a very good location. I haven't really figured out where to put it. I bought it without an idea of where to put it, which was maybe very impulsive, but we'll figure it out. Yes, the fair trade Trader Joe's coffee is really reasonably priced. So we had been previously getting the $5 for 1 pound non-organic, non-fair trade coffee from Whole Foods. And it was okay. And most of us got coffee at work. And so it was sort of like we're like traveling. So it was sort of like the fill-in coffee. Then when that stopped being true, we kind of were like, let's upgrade the coffee like a little bit. And we discovered the Trader Joe's stuff, which is only like, I think it's $3 more, and it's fair trade and organic. I have my issues with fair trade, but you know, it's better than not is kind of my philosophy. The stuff from the local roaster, it's literally a roaster a block from our house. And they give you a pound and it's only $14, which is very reasonably priced. And it's single source. So, and it's very good. So it's also very reasonably priced. $14 for a pound as opposed to $17 for 12 ounces is very big difference. And I like supporting them because they're like a vegan coffee shop and coffee roaster in my neighborhood that I want to stick around. And obviously it's extremely hard for local restaurants right now. So I like that they've pivoted and I want to support them in that. Gifts. That was one gift. I paid an unreasonable amount to get 2 donuts to my coworker delivered for her birthday. I don't really regret it. She's a super foodie and I wanted to like get her something for her birthday. And spending money, that's pocket money. It's most likely getting candy. That's usually what spending money means for me. I didn't mention groceries. Groceries are $134.50. That includes treats, and treats are like snacks, but not candy. I know what it means in my head, but most people don't. I spent like $10 on treats, and then it also includes regular groceries. We have a CSA that started halfway through June, and that is probably going to lower our grocery bill for the next couple months because we're not having to buy the vegetables. Although, you know, obviously it's a CSA, so we still have to deal with what's in season. Right now, we need to learn how to cook every kind of green that you've ever heard of. So, and figure skating. Figure skating is very expensive right now. It's a very expensive hobby anyway, but it got even more expensive because they can't have the normal amount of people on the ice, so they have to charge you more. So it's $20 for 45 minutes to an hour of private, like, no more than 10 people on the ice. So I went twice. It also is, there's only one rink that's, like, open right now, and it requires me to take the train out to the suburbs. My transit is paid for by my job because I work in transit, so they feel like it's reasonable to pay the employee's transit bill. So it doesn't cost me $5 myself to go out there, but I don't know, I'm not happy about it. And now that we're having case spikes, including case spikes in the county where the skating rink is, I kind of have made the decision that I don't think it's worth the risk. So they were doing temperature checks, social distancing, weren't letting more than 10 people on the ice, but I'm still concerned no one was wearing masks on the ice itself because you are technically socially distanced, but I'm just getting too scared. Coffee out was getting a fancy coffee from that same local coffee shop in Pickup. And it's really a smoothie, but it was a coffee smoothie. And charity is, I am slowly ramping up now that my savings is built back up. I am slowly ramping up my charity. So I have always done at least 5% of my expenses will go to charity. And I mostly try to do that in monthly donations. With the state of the world and the fact that I'm in the best financial position I've been in my life, I am trying to up the amount that I do to charity. I still do it out of expenses. It's a challenge for me. I would love to do it out of total income, but I still kind of struggle with that. So I've been moving it up. I'm kind of moving it up 1 percentage point per month and going up to 10%. However, I'm actually donating a lot through Oh My Dollar right now, and this is just my personal expenses. So, yeah, you can see the breakdown of essentials and indulgences. So next one, I'll show you the income. So this is my post-tax income. This also is after 2 deductions from my day job, which is for dental and vision. I And obviously, I do extra withholding at my day job, like I mentioned. So, day job ended up being $2,859.16 take home. Radio job for half a month was $452.42. I do all of my income, so there's my bank account interest of 7 cents. By the way, I promise by next month I will be moving like at least $10,000 into a high yield savings account because it's getting ridiculous how much is in my checking account right now. So that's my goal for next month. Yeah, I'm rolling in cash from my 7 cents in interest. I could be making like, I don't know, $30 in interest a month from a higher APR savings account, so I will do it. I found one bank that sets your APR based on how many steps you get per month. It's called Fitness Bank. I thought it would make a very funny like episode or YouTube video to do it. But I was just like, I part of me is like, I need to be doing more, I need to be working out more. And so I was like, oh, maybe it'll be motivating. But I ended up deciding I didn't want that extra added stress of like, oh, my APR goes down if I don't get enough steps, or like my Fitbit breaks, which seems to happen all the time. And then suddenly it's not counting the steps. Latitude says, seems suspicious. Sounds like to me, actually, what happened is someone was desperately trying to get some VC money in the public health and fintech space, and they just invented this stupid online fitness bank crap. But Brianna said do it today. I'm not going to do it today. It's not going to happen today. You don't understand how long I have to contemplate and research things. So, I also need a lot of money in my checking account. I usually have to have at least like 3,000 to 5,000 in there to feel safe and secure. This is a me problem, but it's, I'm willing to lose the, extra $2 in interest a month or whatever I could get off that $5,000 at a 1% APR checking account. So, Oh My Dollar only paid me $150 this month. Like I said, I'm donating more through charity, and I'm not taking a lot out of the business right now. Last year, I was taking all of my personal income out of the business. And this year, since I do have a day job, I'm actually leaving a lot of money in the business. I'm trying to reinvest it in some things, particularly inventory. So, that. Okay, next is household costs. We already kind of walked through these, so we can just move. It's just a different way to see it on the screen. Katie says, wow, their best interest rate is barely better than mine at Ally Bank, and they let me sit on the couch all day. See, that was the thing, is like, I was like, so I could just get a different one and not have to, but I like it as a, I like it as like a, way to, as a commitment device. I like it as a commitment device, but yeah. Daniel says, look into Trailhead Credit Union. Oh, that's a Portland one. Yeah. Up to 2.5% up to 10K in checking. I think they just changed that. I actually saw that because I was looking into that for a while. And I'm pretty sure they just changed it this month. I'm definitely not moving my checking. Maybe I've talked about this before, but not Spawn. They have tried to spawn me before, but I use USAA. Which is a bank for members of the military or their immediate family. And USAA is the like best bank I've ever had. And it's largely because it's a bank that has been remote since the 90s. So they actually were the bank that invented the mobile checking technology. The reason I'm going to stick with them, one, I have an incredibly long banking history with them. And once I leave, I can't come back because my parents are out of the military and I'm there as a dependent. My parents left the military like shortly after I was born. The military doesn't want me, so, and I don't really want them right now. So the other reason I'm sticking with USAA as my main checking is it's totally fee-free checking. It's super easy. And because they are a military bank, they do not blink an eye at how often I moved in my 20s or the fact that I changed countries. So, like, they overnighted me a debit card to Germany for free when I lost it. And that's because like they're totally used to having members be stationed abroad. And my experience with moving to local credit unions is that it might work for savings, but I have a lot of issues with them. I tried to use one. I tried to move almost all my money to a local credit union and for like a money market account. And I got so frustrated at how like they locked up like $5,000 of my money when I was living in India for 4 months. I called them from the roof of the house I was living on in the middle of the night because of time zones in a monsoon. They just ignored my calls for like 4 months. Anyway, I have issues with local banks and I'm considering moving abroad again next year. So I'm probably going to go with the internet only bank. Even though I support credit unions, they're great. All right, so the total I spent was $1,359. That was personal income. And the reason it says 37.6 of total annual budget at 50% of the way through the year is that every year I try to predict what my budget is going to be, and then I compare at the end of the year. Usually the main reason I do this is I am trying to budget for two things: travel and any like large purchases I might want to do during the year. Travel made up, I think, $3,000 of this budget, and I'm doing zero of it this year. So the budget that I had set was $22,000 this year. Figure skating also made up a huge component of that, and I've only been on the ice like a total of 11 hours this year or something, because pandemic. So I am not super concerned. Anyway, there we go. Next one. So savings. 400 went to my traditional IRA. I don't have access to an employer-sponsored retirement account right now. I will in January. So 400 goes there. I am prioritizing cash savings over investments, taxable or otherwise right now. So, and the reason I use a traditional IRA is because my income is so high this year, and the fact that I was receiving the healthcare subsidy for the first part of the year, although I'm going to have to pay it all back because my income is going to be too high. But I do traditional IRA because it lowers my overall income, which is very excellent when you pay a high tax rate like you do if you're self-employed, or if you're rich like me and make $50,000 a year now. So that is why I do it. Roth is what I often recommend for people. So Jeremy asked if I had thought about doing a solo 401k for Oh My Dollar. I actually have thought about doing it. I would probably actually do a SEP IRA, which is you can put slightly less in it over the 401k, over a solo 401k, but I don't make enough for that to really be a big deal. I've thought about doing it, but as I mentioned, I am prioritizing cash this year over stocks because I am saving up to hopefully go to grad school in England next year, for which I will be a self-funded student, so I need a lot in cash. If I end up deciding not to do that, then I will probably put that cash into investments, most likely market investments. I'm not going to buy a house or anything. But I'm kind of in a cash stage right now. I was also prioritizing cash through the first half of the year because I had whittled down a lot of my savings last year when I was living entirely off Oh My Dollar income. I had like slowly stepped down some of my savings, and I wanted to get my emergency fund back up. My emergency fund is now at a year's worth of expenses for me, so that's kind of the reason. With Oh My Dollar, I have thought about it, Jeremy. I kind of feel like I would only really need it for the next 6 months because I have access to an employer-sponsored one next year in January, so it didn't make a ton of sense. So cash savings was $2,315. That will probably not continue next month because I obviously will have less income. I think the goal is to get to the point where I'm sort of taking enough out from Oh My Dollar that it's very similar to what I was making from the 15-hour week W-2 job, which I was previously there, no problem. I was making a lot more than that from Oh My Dollar, but I haven't been putting a lot of attention on it because I was working two other jobs. So Jeremy said, I didn't know they had a waiting period for 401k. Well, no. So my day job has an employer-sponsored one, and it's quite common at a lot of jobs to have a 1 year or 6 month period before you can use the 401k, sometimes 90 days. I don't really understand why they do this. Because I know jobs where they do that despite the fact that they don't do a match. My day job does actually do a match, so it makes a little more sense why they delay it. It's actually not going to be a 401k. It is a simple IRA, but which has a lower total amount that you can put into it, but it's fine. They put 3% in of my salary as a contribution, not even a match, so that's great. I'm very excited about it. I have like a pretty nice day job, so this is my year-to-date total savings, which is $14,243, and my goal is 20,000 this year. I set that goal way before I knew I would be making this much money, so I'm very likely going to blow past that goal unless I lose my job, which is very possible in this economy, or if I end up like having some sort of other crisis where I need to quit my job or I have another medical expense that isn't covered or whatever. So yeah. Jeremy says, yeah, it's silly. If they match, they can just do a vesting schedule. Yeah, that's kind of, so I will say I work for a very small company. It's only recently been 18 people. For years, it was just like one person. It's a friend of mine's company. And so they don't have like a professional HR person. They have like a chief administrative officer who does a ton of other stuff, who has like a law background, but isn't really like an HR professional. And they do an excellent job for not being, but it's just not one of those things. We don't have like a team of people to figure this out. So, yeah. And I think they also want you to be incentivized to stay a long time. They also do a sabbatical after you've been there for 4 years. You get paid 40% of your salary for a month, and then they add on like a month of that each year. So there are some people that take 3 months sabbaticals and they, get paid 40% of their salary. So yeah. I'm going to blow past that $20,000 goal. Should we eat a donut? Is there anything else? Oh, I want to show you my net worth and then we'll eat a donut. So, business expenses. Do people want to see my business expenses? Is this interesting? Have I lost everybody because I feel like it's just annoying? But I know other people are interested. Oh, it's donut time? All right. I'll talk about the business expenses. Then the reward is the donut, okay? So I am donating all radio ad income and then another percentage of my income to charity right now. So this is the total expenses for Oh My Dollar. I think I made about $1,000 gross for Oh My Dollar last month. It's on my report, but I forget off the top of my head. So 130 of that was donations to charity. The operating expenses are my mail software, which mail software is really expensive, but that's partially because they have to keep you compliant, and I have no interest in keeping myself compliant with all the mailing laws. So I pay them to maintain it. I have a lot of automation set up and stuff, but I almost never send out broadcast emails, which is a shame because I spend a lot of money on it. So that's called ConvertKit. I also pay for a lot of my quantified self software that I use for doing reports and stuff, and I justify it. So that's Exist and Gyroscope. Mailgun is, believe it or not actually my mailing list software. That is the software behind sending automatic transaction emails for the forums. So when people get email alerts and stuff, I pay a tiny amount. I pay a fraction of a cent for every email that goes out. And I think I have something around 13,000 emails a month or something go out for that. So that's the Mailgun that I pay for. Meals, I think that's $13.50. I don't know why it's just 13. That is these donuts. So those are 50% tax deductible because I show them on the live stream. That would normally be meals out for travel, but not doing that anymore. Backblaze is backup storage for my computer because I have lots of files. Very exciting. Hosting and servers. Right now is about $30. That is all of the standard hosting for the forums. So that's Linode. That is a virtual private server. That does not include my annual fees that I pay for domains and kind of my overall hosting. But that is my virtual private server and Linode fees month to month, for mostly the forums, which is not that bad. Like $360 a year for hosting is not that bad for the volume of stuff that we have on the forums, like for the volume of traffic that we get. Media subscriptions, I pay for some newspapers because they're totally tax write-offable, and I like supporting journalism. Advertising, I think I spent $2 to like boost a Facebook post as an experiment, and it didn't really work, so it's fine. Office supplies, $22.59 is most likely mailing envelopes. It could be planner stuff that I don't remember buying, but professional development, that was for a course that I got, $56. Sonics is our automatic transcription software that I then use to edit. I'm supposed to be phasing out of it by copying old transcripts out of their player. I have not done that, so I continue to pay $15 a month while also paying a professional transcriptionist. And $29.99, I'm still getting the student rate for Adobe Creative Cloud, and until they figure out they shouldn't do that for an alumni address, I'm gonna keep doing that. But that's the unfortunate thing. I will pay $50 a month for Adobe Creative Cloud whenever they start charging me that, which is the market rate, because I'm just stuck with them. Been using them for like 20 years now. And they know that. They know I can't move from Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign and all of it. And then supplies for videos. I don't remember what I got, but it was $14.94. Something I needed for videos. Cost of goods sold. That is the cost for actual things that I ship out. Most of my cost of goods sold is actually calculated from books, but that includes shipping as cost of goods sold versus operating expenses. The monthly fee that I pay for my Shopify store, which is separate and I think worth the $29 a month. Stickers, purchasing more stickers to sell, and samples, which was in fact samples of a sweater with the hope that maybe I make sweaters, but I don't think I'm gonna make sweaters. And then contractors is who I pay for transcription. That usually is higher, but I made 2 less podcasts last month, so that's only, they pay them in a minute. And then, yeah, let's talk about the donut, and we'll come back to expenses. I feel like it's been very long. All right, horchata salt twist donut. I'm really excited. I have no idea what this is going to taste like. Latitude says the sad face was about no sweaters. Yeah. We'll see. They're just going to be expensive, and I'm upset about having to charge that much. Okay. The salt is intense, and I love it. But if you're not someone who likes sea salt on sweet things, you will not like this donut. The rest of the flavor is creamy. Considering it's a vegan donut, I feel like that's notable. I wish you could see, like, all the salt in it. I do appreciate it's easier to eat than a lot of the normal donuts. So. Is it spicy? No. It's not, there's not. I know my tolerance is incredibly high compared to most people, but this is not, there's not even like a taste of spice in it. It's just salty and sweet. Related to spiciness tolerance, so I eat like raw habaneros every day, and then I cover everything I eat in hot sauce. And today when I was running, because I have not been sweating a lot, because I haven't been working out enough, when I was running, I was burning from all of the sweat coming through my pores that is just filled with spiciness. So I pretty much just like tear gassed my skin by sweating. Fun fact for you. It doesn't taste cinnamon-based. I think I see, like, tiny flecks that are supposed to be cinnamon, but it's not really... Mm-mm. Yeah, it's just like a heated up nut milk with cinnamon. Verdict is I like this a lot. It's less, it's not like, it's less exciting than some of the, like, excitingly flavored donuts. It's just a very solid pastry. I really like the salt. So, Joe says I want a Krispy Kreme now. Yeah, that would be great. Hmm. Am I getting lipstick all over my face? Well, we'll find out. I always watch back at these live streams, and then I inevitably notice, like, after I eat the donut, I have a piece of donut stuck to my face for the rest of the live stream. And no one tells me. Oh, good. Brianna said that it doesn't look like there's lipstick all over me. I got on the donut, I'll tell you that. Also, once again, we forgot a napkin, so it's fine. It definitely feels like I have stuff in my teeth. Ooh. Oh, it goes well with bourbon tea. I'm really sad we don't have a kitten visitor. She tried to visit earlier, but not in a helpful way. She just tried to come and be lighting director. Wrap up by talking about Wish Farms and net worth, and then I will discuss what's going on with the COVID bill in the US. Does that sound good? The, like, renewal of the stimulus bill? Does anybody want to tell me what they got up to this week before we dive into savings? Like, what was the best part of your week? For the people that are not in America, did you come out of lockdown this week and have more fun? Because I know a lot of places, lockdown was lifted, like, last week. Lad says, I was anxious and bought a tent and a sleeping bag. Are you, like, planning on going somewhere? Or was that just, like, you just decided you needed to have it in case? Jeremy actually did need a tent. Jeremy was camping in Washington all week. Claire inventoried their craft drawers. That sounds great. So, I just got a bunch of drawers, and then suddenly my drawers could be organized. And it turned out the problem was that I only had one drawer before, and I just own too many tiny things because I have all this inventory of stickers and stuff and, like, dongles for video. Yeah, so doing inventory was good. I have an inventory of... I only do once a year actual inventory of my actual inventory because I have to do it for taxes. And I otherwise have no idea how many stickers I own at any given time. Ash got unemployment payment for the first time. Yes. Oh, very relevant to the what is going to happen. I think, Ash, you got an unemployment payment for just being partially furloughed, right, too? Which is kind of like one of the ideal circumstances. Denise worked all week. Amanda bought a new phone after your 5-year-old note started being a pain in the butt. Yes. I was just remarking on this the other day because I got this phone I got it after I got my stimulus check, so in some way I did spend it on that, but I bought it from my business. The Yeah, anyway, so I just saw an email. That's why I got distracted. I'm sorry. Uh, I got this and I realized how much stress my old crappy phone that I was trying to hold on to because I didn't want to spend $800 on a phone. Uh, I realized how much stress it was causing on my life. And then I got a new phone and now I never think about my phone. It's just like a tool that I have and I use instead of like a thing I yell at on a regular basis, mostly. I yell at it very little. Amanda's closing out the week by going to a funeral. Ooh, that's not very fun. Sorry to hear that. Uh, ooh, cute mini drawer just for washi tape. That's very exciting. I also looked into making custom washi tape. I've been on a product making research binge. I would really like to make custom washi tape. I feel like the minimums are slightly high, but I will also say it doesn't take that much room to store the inventory. And the inventory never expires. It's not like planners, which is my big fear. Oh no, the monitor went to sleep. Claire says, I would totally buy Oh My Dollar washi tape. I see, this is the thing. I know I have the market for it. I'm just not sure I can justify the minimum order. I will also say, so Joe said I definitely also need washi tape. That is the other thing. It's super cheap to ship. Like, it's a rare physical product, similar to stickers, that like I can ship it internationally for only slightly more than like a regular letter. Which is really attractive to me because that's what I hate about like books or sweaters or anything else is that I do have an audience in other countries and I hate putting out products that are like, here's a $5 product that'll cost $15 to $30 to ship to you. So yeah. And also I really love washi tape, like a lot. Oh, we're trying to get a kitten cam going. Is it going to be a lap kitten or is it going to be a okay, nap kitten? I reached out and grabbed you. I think we're going to have kitten cam going. I would love to show off the Wish Farm expenses. Okay. So, Wish Farm is where Okay, fine. I will make some washi tape. Clearly I need to make some washi tape. Maybe I can release some washi tape like with the bourbon. The bourbon tea. It's not real bourbon. By the way, I just want to let you know that I researched in all of the countries where I tend to have people buy products. I literally researched the cost of and import restrictions on tea for all of those places just to make sure that if I did it, I could actually ship it to the UK and Australia and Germany where I have folks. So yes, I'm very excited about it. But it's 50 Australian dollars, which means it's like $40. This is the thing is, I think Joe is very used to high shipping, I will say, because that's what happens when you live in Australia. So, but yeah, $50 shipping for a $40 planner is a little outrageous, but okay, yes. So Wish Farm is where I put things that I want, but like they're not my regular indulgences. So I have an indulgences part of my budget, and that's where I put things that I want that aren't like essentials, but they're not like such large expenses that I would put them in there. And figure skating would be in Wish Farm, except it has its own category because I like to track all the subcategories like coaching and ice time and everything. But Wish Farm is often where I put savings goals. So I have, right now, this is my Wish Farm. I have money sitting in there right now for a Lolita costume that I put a 50% deposit on back in February. And at some point when the factories open back up, it will come to me and I will have to pay the other half. And yes, it is very expensive, but I like costumes and I spend a lot of money on costuming. It's pretty much a Marie Antoinette outfit, custom made for me. I'm very excited about it. So it was supposed to be what I wore on my birthday, but my birthday already happened and COVID is still COVIDing. So, but the things that I have that I'm saving for now are tuition, deposit, and visa fees. And the reason you can see they're yellow is I have them based on points in time. So I would need to pay my visa fees 3 months before I actually would start school in the UK next year. And then I would need to pay my deposit for school in January, I believe. And that would be like $4,000 for my deposit for school. And then the visa fees are how much I need to actually have for the visa, which includes my international health surcharge, which would be about $300 US, which is how much I pay for healthcare in a month in the United States. And that gets me free healthcare for an entire year as an international person in the Kenna asked what program it is. Yes, this is YNAB. I love YNAB. It stands for You Need a Budget. I was always very skeptical of doing YNAB because I was like, I don't need a budget. I'm great at money. And then I got it and I realized it was just fabulous screenshots. I guess we're not going to have whatever else we have on the screen. I think the cat is more important. So the other thing I'm saving up for is actual tuition. So the big question mark is, one, if I actually even want to do this, I need to have the full amount of my tuition plus a year or 10 months worth of living expenses for London in my bank account when I apply for my visa. And it has to have been in there for 30 days in order to get my visa. And I'm paying fully in cash. Tuition is, depending on the exchange rate for a year of a master's, is around 20,000 US. And I do have close to that amount of cash, like, already for the tuition, like, available. But I would rather save for it this year and I don't want to eat into any of my other kind of buffer funding. I don't really want to move to one of the most expensive cities in the world without a fully funded emergency fund for obvious reasons. So Lat says 20 grand for grad school. And here's the thing, grad school is only a year in the UK, Lat. So that is one of the reasons, sorry, I just gave you a shorter name. Yeah, that is one of the reasons that I am so interested in doing it, especially compared to doing it in the US. It is between half to even going in-state here for the same thing. In-state, still working full-time would cost me twice as much for grad school. And that's at like our cheap kind of university here. So going to the UK and paying double the rate that they do in the UK as an international student is still so much cheaper. But also I don't need a master's. I mostly want to move to London. And I'm not sure that's a good enough reason to drop 20K. Like I want it. I want the master's and like the learning, but I don't need it. So anyway, if you're interested in this whole evolution of this, I'm sure I'll talk about it again. You know, also, like, I have a good job here. I wouldn't be taking the job with me, probably, because they probably don't want me to be working on an 8-hour time difference. So we'll see. There's also other things, other investments I could make with that $20,000. It's almost impossible to immigrate to the UK unless you're super special as an American and someone wants to sponsor you. It costs them a bunch of money for an employer to sponsor you. So you better be spectacular. Very hard as an American. They also have to prove that no one in England that is a UK citizen is a better fit for the job than you to like even get it. So yeah. Yeah, there's a really intense armpit grooming going on over there. So yeah. Kenna says that's 20K of washi tape and Lolita dresses. Yes. Actually, I mean, one of the other arguments is, so the program I'm interested in going for is a master's degree in financial journalism. And, like, I could just stay here and not live in London and probably make $20,000 in pitching freelance articles and, like, you know, writing about doing financial journalism, which, like, $20,000 isn't a lot of money, but I wouldn't be spending it. So that's kind of the struggle right now. I just really want to live in London, and the student visa is one of the easiest ways to do it. And the program would be cool. You get work experience with the BBC, The Economist, The Guardian. It's a professional master's degree, so, and I can focus on radio and broadcast journalism. So I can like be going and doing financial journalism for the BBC. So I don't know. It sounds very exciting, but also I don't really need it. There's part of the program is fully funded study trips to the New York Stock Exchange and the Shanghai Stock Exchange with a visit to the Alibaba headquarters to like see how that crazy corporation works. I don't know. Sounds great. Sounds very fun. It's also almost impossible to get like scholarships for one, journalism masters, and two, Americans going to school in the UK. I could also move to Germany and get a master's in 2 years for totally free if I wanted to do that. But I don't want to live in Germany. I've already lived in Germany. I want to live in London again. And I need healthcare, so I can't just go on a tourist visa. So, you can, as an American, you can actually stay in London for up to 6 months. Like you get an automatic tourist visa. But you can't get on the NHS unless you're on a different type of visa and you're there for longer than 6 months. And I have to have healthcare because my drug is very expensive. So, yeah. Latitude says Germany has healthcare. It does. It's true. Germany has many excellent options for me if I really wanted, if I cared more about the masters and less about living in London. I mean, I had great healthcare when I was there, for undergrad. I had reasonable living expenses. Berlin has gotten more expensive now. I love Berlin. I speak decent German. I could get a lot better at German by, the beginning of their school year next year, but nah. Also, I have to pay for 2 years of living expenses in that case. So it ends up being almost as much. So. Because the tuition is free, and you get like a transit pass for like $100 a semester or something, but you still have to pay your living expenses, which ends up being about the same that I would pay to live in London and get a master's there in 1 year. All right, moving on. I wanted to show my net worth chart. I'm not going to show the numbers on the side. At some point, maybe I'll share my numbers for my net worth. I'm not like super secretive about this, but one reason I don't like sharing it is because I tend to fall into a comparison trap with other people. And as you are going to see, the times when I am making a middle-class salary, you can see the sharp, steep takeoff there. And I tend to have a pretty good savings rate, even when I wasn't making a lot of money. But there's something that happens when you're used to making around minimum wage or minimum wage, and your expenses are set at such, and you start making a median salary, you're just off to the races. So you can see on this net worth chart, when I went from working traditional jobs, and when I quit my job and started my own business, and my income became a lot more variable. That was in late 2016. And you can see immediately, you can see how it was like a steady climb when I had W-2 jobs. So I was earning between $30,000 and up to $49,000 a year. I was earning during that first part of that graph. And then it drops the second that I start to become self-employed. And you can see I'll have huge spikes because I'll do like a Kickstarter or something and I'll make a lot of money, or I'll have like a course sale or something, and then it'll go up and down again. Also, sometimes I get big jumps when I get a tax return. Like I get refund. But then look at that steady increase as soon as I started making a median salary and stopped making and had a W-2 job with predictable income. I just want to show sometimes the game is rigged. And when you see people that are having certain kinds of accomplishments with their finances, and you're like, how am I ever going to do that? It may be because you do not have the same resources as them. Because even me, I have the same skill set. I have the same implicit tendings towards savings. And my income and my income and the stability of my income and the size of my income is entirely what determines my net worth. sure, I got some returns on my portfolio when the markets were doing well that like sometimes compensated, but in a large part, the biggest net wealth builder you have is your income. So that's it. That's all I want to say about that. I really feel like I'm drinking bourbon, you all. I keep having to be like, I'm not getting drunk off this, am I? It really tastes like bourbon, I swear. All right, let's talk about the COVID bill, and then we'll depart for the evening. Unless, does anybody have any weird questions about my finances? I feel like I gave you way too much information, as opposed to way too little. Now, Lat wants to know about the COVID bill. Latitude, I'm sorry I keep shortening your name. I feel like there are a lot of syllables in it, and I think that's why I keep shortening it. Okay, so the COVID bill. So I've done many live streams before on this, and the what happened with what was called the CARES Act, which was the stimulus bill. Oh, Lat is your name on Twitter. That's why. I was like, did I just make up a nickname for you? Because I feel like I'm not usually that lazy. That's probably why. Okay, so, passed the CARES Act. That passed in March as, like, a panic thing. And the CARES bill was essentially, like, them throwing everything in. It was a $3.4 trillion bill, which is not even, like, an amount that one can conceive of. And it included everything from loans for small businesses that will be forgiven, the payroll protection loan to keep their employees on, expanded unemployment benefits, those $1,200 checks that a lot of people got. The expanded unemployment benefits are probably the most important part of this. So, what happened with the extra unemployment, is that, one, they used unemployment as the vehicle to get workers that were sick with COVID paid sick leave. Because 50% of workers in this country do not have paid sick leave at work. It is not mandated by the government except in a couple states. And, did you just whack the camera? And so one of the things that they did is essentially said, like, you get 2 weeks of unemployment if you need to take off because you're COVID or whatever. And then additionally, they extended it in a ton of other ways. They extended it to people who were furloughed. So in the same case as Ash, where they just lost part of their income, which most states didn't have. Only a couple states had what was called work share before, which was like if you lost part of your income, you could qualify for unemployment. They made it so that if you were immunosuppressed or someone in your household was immunosuppressed and you couldn't go to work, if you were high risk, theoretically you could get unemployment. And then additionally, they theoretically opened it up to 1099 workers, which for most states was the first time that someone that ran a small business or was a freelancer or was a gig worker would ever qualify for unemployment. Unemployment is a very narrow program in the United States. There depends on the state, but Joe says, I'm surprised it's only 50% that don't have sick leave. Yes. I would say that it really depends. About 50% of people in the US work for what's called a large employer, and a lot of large employers will have sick leave, but quite often that will be bundled together with PTO and vacation time. So it's just paid time off. And at quite a few places you do have sick time, but you have to be sick for 3 days before it will kick in. And there's no requirements for how much it is. So they can give you 1 sick day a year if they want. It's not a real system. We should really just talk about the cat. So the CARES Act did a bunch of stuff. One of the other things they did is they added $600 a week onto the unemployment benefit that you were going to receive through the state, called Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. And this is because for most people, I mean, I think the face is pretty good. We don't want Dora to eat the camera, which seems fair. For most people, this was it either I saw the stats on it recently, but for most people, with that extra $600 a week, they're actually making more than they were making when they were fully employed. And for some people, they were making as much as double what they were making when they were fully employed. And Republicans don't like this. I mean, a lot of people don't like this, but they don't. Essentially, in the United States, we usually try to tie any kind of entitlement benefits, which are food stamps, whatever, any assistance for low-income people that they like to call entitlements. We like to tie it to the idea that you should be working. Which is part of the reason that we have a terrible healthcare system in this country, because we tie healthcare to employment for no reason. So the unemployment rate in the US is outrageous right now. I'm going to put up this chart, and this chart makes it look like the unemployment rate. Are we going to replace the cat with the unemployment rate? Oh, so sad. We'll bring the cat back. So this just shows you how significantly high it is right now, and that's because so many things are shut down still. And we've been having a spike, but they said that the unemployment rate dropped by 11.5% in early June. The problem was we started having these really big spikes back up where a lot of states started to close down lockdown again. One of the reasons that rate dropped in the unemployment numbers report that came out is they did all the surveys at the beginning of June. So they do this based on surveys. They extrapolate it out. Currently, they say that we have 17.5 million Americans are unemployed. There's actually a lot more people that kind of like are less, than that. But yes, Dora is disengaged from the CARES Act and will chew on her toes. Anyway, let's replace the unemployment with the cat because I think that's a lot more fun to look at. Okay, so not going to get in too deep. The unemployment has been a mess. A lot of states, people haven't gotten it at all, even though gig workers are supposed to qualify for it. Some people are going to be entitled to like 4 months of back pay by the time they actually get through. The system was overwhelmed. It's totally a mess. That being said, it is holding a lot of people together. The people that did manage to get it, that were in states where the system was functional, a lot of these people are people that lost W-2 jobs. There's some people for which they are not going to get back to work anytime soon. People that work in entertainment industries, no, not people that make television, but people that work in theater. Broadway is shut down until 2021. And that's not just actors. Just to be clear, there are union carpenters that work behind all of the Broadway. There are lots of union carpenters that work at every convention center in the entire country, except for the states where they've kind of conveniently banned unions. There are a lot of people in trades that are in these kind of typically good, stable jobs that they worked very hard in that are just not going to be able to go back to work. Like anybody in travel, hospitality kind of based industries is very likely to not be able to get reemployed until 2021, or in workplaces where social distancing is actually just impossible and they're not essential services. So a great example is like mining is not happening right now. Mining is considered an essential service, but it is also way too dangerous to have people doing during a respiratory pandemic outbreak because social distancing is impossible and coal miners already have very bad lungs. So it's really frustrating and hard. Emily says, my sister works for a touring production as a stage manager, and watching her employer scramble has been so frustrating and anxiety producing. Yeah, that's the thing is like they really can't make plans right now. Like a lot of them just kind of like moved out to next year. Latitude said one miner mining at a time. Yeah, I feel like that breaks like 10,000 types of safety regulations for mining to just send one person down at a time. But there's a lot of people that are just not going to be able to get back to work. Not to mention, like, there's a lot of people in restaurants that have just seen their income really dip, or the restaurants are still closed. And these extra $600 a week, which were intended, it was kind of passed really hastily because they just needed to pass it really quickly. It only goes through the end of July. And that means that there are a lot of people that are getting it that are, in a couple of weeks, really going to be SOL. And the unemployment benefits are going to go longer, but the average unemployment benefit in this country is about $400 a week versus if you're getting $400 plus the extra $600 a week, which is $1,000. In some states, if you were self-employed, you didn't qualify for even the minimum amount of unemployment income. You only qualified for that $600 a week from pandemic unemployment assistance. So if you don't if that goes away at the end of July, you've just gone to no income. But if you are an Uber driver that still in a lot of states is not allowed to operate, and you are getting that pandemic unemployment assistance, and that's how you're supporting your family, then if that doesn't get extended out, then it's really, going to be a huge push. So Ash says that's why I'm furloughed 1 day a week, July, and then 1 day a month, August to November. That's really nice of them to do that. Yeah, that's excellent to do that. I feel like that's way more, way more is going on. I will also say there are a lot of people that are reemployed right now simply because their small employer got a payroll protection loan and then needed to bring them back on in order to give the forgiveness. However, a lot of these employers don't have enough work because of the general shutdown, slowdown of consumer spending. And we're likely going to see those people dropped back down to not having work when that payroll protection forgiveness has already happened. So that is there is a lot going on there. The Democrats in the House, we in the US, right, we have to have all bills passed through the House and the Senate and then signed by the president. And then if the president doesn't want to sign them, then they can go back and overrule them. But usually if it gets vetoed by the president, it's not going to get passed under the current administration unless you have a supermajority that's opposite from the president. Anyway, what often happens with big fiscal bills like this is that the House will put together a version and the Senate will put together a version, and then they'll try to mash them together and they'll go through negotiations. This is even more true when we're in the situation we are right now, which is the House is dominantly one party and the other party is dominant in the Senate. And that's the situation we're in right now, where we have a majority in the House for Democrats who are liberal, and then a majority in the Senate for Republicans who are conservative. Conservatives don't like poor people, and to get political, and generally they want to see an incentive to go to work. What they are concerned about, I'm not saying this is reasonable to be concerned about, but what they are concerned about is that people that don't make very high incomes are making so much more on unemployment, they won't want to go back to work. Because why would you go make less? Why would you go put yourself at risk at a job and make less? Especially if you work in some sort of job that is dangerous. So a grocery store employee is a very dangerous job right now. No one signed up for that to be a dangerous job, but it is. And any kind of work like that. So, and then there's also just the camp of people, that are in the situation where they are immunosuppressed or high risk or something like that. And they are, very, they are extremely concerned at, the level of, are people going to go back to work that are at really high risk for COVID because they can't afford to, right? So technically they can still claim these regular employment benefits for longer than July 31st. But if you, for example, if you live in Florida, the maximum you can make from unemployment is still kitty litter money. It's $80 a week or something. And so that is extremely frustrating. Brianna said, sometimes I get annoyed that unemployed people, even temporarily, are making more money than I am as an employed healthcare worker. Then I remember Bezos has a net worth of nearly 200 billion. Yeah, that's the thing, is getting angry at people who lost their jobs in a country during a pandemic in a country that ties healthcare to employment. I think it's helpful to remember that the scale isn't great. And then the other problem is that unemployed people like, when this initially passed, people that were complaining about it, we were like, here's the thing. We do want to pay people to stay home. We don't want people out there. We are extremely worried that we're going to have Uber drivers out there driving and being super spreaders, right? Because that's the only way they can afford to pay their bills. And there's still a ton of people in that category. Just so you know, almost no one that's 1099 in Oregon has gotten any of their unemployment. So there's been people that have been out of work, lost all of their income since March, and haven't gotten any of this assistance because the system is so broken in Oregon. In Oregon, it's so bad, the governor fired the head of the employment department because it's just been such a mess in Oregon. Not every state is quite as much of a trash fire as Oregon as far as unemployment, but people with like normal claims haven't even been able to get through in this state. The other thing is, like, for a lot of people, the reason it's so much more is because they made so little before. So what the Democrats passed this bill called the HEROES Act, which is a follow-up, and it was going to extend these benefits out till October, this extra $600 a week. The Senate has essentially said there's no way that bill is coming to the Senate. They pushed this back, and July 20th is when they come back from recess, and July 31st is when this all expires. So essentially, what they are planning to do is that they are like hoping to extend that out, but what the Republicans want to do is that they want to like pay people to go back to work. So they want to provide some sort of go back to work incentive. I will say they had a much stronger stance against this until we started having these really big spiking cases, second wave from reopening. And I think they might be getting a little more kind of worn down, but they are only going to have 11 days to pass something. And last time they passed this in like a week, and that's why it was a mess. And like payroll protection, they got like 48 hours to implement this payroll protection loan at the SBA, and that's why it was a mess and everything. So Emily asked if there is a TLDR on why Oregon's unemployment system is so borked, giving its liberal rep. Part of it is that we do have a liberal reputation, and we've had no jobs for most of our history. So that's it. But yeah, so COBOL is actually really the answer. The system is just antiquated. It's from the early 90s, and they weren't able to staff up in time in order to really get this together. I don't know why Oregon is just quite a mess, but I will say we had a very high unemployment rate very quickly. We've always had very high unemployment in the state. We only started to have an economic recovery for the first time since the 80s in the last couple years. So we actually had such a high unemployment rate that we were one of the few states that were allowed to offer food stamps without doing an asset test. So, and then additionally, one of the other reasons, or like one of the other things, is that we've always had this very long unemployment window in Oregon because we've had such high unemployment numbers. We've had over, so we actually don't have high unemployment. We didn't have a high unemployment right before the pandemic, but that was only because of the recent years boom. So Oregon as a state is mostly rural, and it was very dependent on timber in the economy up until the mid 80s. Then we chopped down all the trees, and we weren't allowed to chop down the rest of them. And it kind of spiraled out of control from there. So that's part of it. The other part is that we're not a very big state, and so we just didn't have a lot of employees at the Department of Employment, right? Because even if you have a high unemployment rate, if you only have a state population of 5.6 million, you don't actually need that many people working at the Department of Employment. So that's part of it. It appears to just be some like terrible mismanagement. I don't really know. It's been a mess. But it is all technical. It's going to be a massive investigation in Oregon because it's so bad that like there were whistleblowers from within like call center employees like call center employees that essentially are like whistleblowing on the Department of Employment where they were being told to just lie about people's applications. So, yeah. Emily says, I always forget that nobody lives in most of the state. Yeah, I mean, there are parts of Oregon where you can, like, people per square mile is less than one person. So, you can drive, like, 5+ hours in Oregon without seeing another, like, dwelling or person in a lot of Oregon. So, yeah. Joe said you have more people than Western Australia. I mean, Western Australia isn't very big anyway. I mean, like, it's not a very big population. Like, all of Australia doesn't have that much population. Your biggest cities, I think, in Australia are just shy of, like, our top 40 cities in the U.S. So, you just have a lot of land, but you don't have a lot of people. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm talking shit about Australia. There's, like, nobody who lives in the middle. Yeah, Joe says we're just really large towns. Yeah, I was really surprised to find out how small Perth is comparatively because, you know, it seems, yeah. Joe says no water for people to survive. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to live in the middle of Australia. It looks fairly hot. Ooh, Australia has a Montana population distribution. I think that's probably correct. Although there's definitely more people in Perth than there are in the two big cities in Montana. Because there's the college town, Missoula. And then isn't the largest city Bozeman in Montana? I don't know. Now we're just naming facts about states and countries. We should probably be done. So it looks like they might give people a one-time bonus to come back to work. I think they're going to have to extend the unemployment benefits because in a lot of states, you cannot pay even low bills on unemployment. What they're talking about is making it equal to 100% of what you were making before. So that's going to really suck for people that didn't make very much money before, but it's going to suck a lot less than people that would have been making the minimum amount in states. Because in a lot of states, minimum amount can be like $50 a week or something like that. So, whew. I really hope that they end up going with the 100% deal. There also might be a stimulus check again. So a bunch of people got that. People that made less than $100,000 got a stimulus check. And the new threshold they're thinking for the stimulus bill is going to be people that make less than $40,000 a year. And I was like, ooh, I'm going to get more money. And then I remembered I make so much money now. I won't. But that's great. I don't think I should get another stimulus bill. I'm still employed, so great. Oh, wait, will I get it, though? Because last year I made less than $40,000. Oh, and last time it was based on last year. Yep. We'll find out. Okay. Well, you all have been lovely. I hope you have a good week. I appreciate the enthusiasm for both washi tape and bourbon. It is very exciting, and I feel like I may have to, I might just have to, well, I'm definitely doing the tea, but I think I might have to make some washi tape too. I really want to do a planner, but planner is a huge investment, and who wants to buy a planner right now anyway, because the world's on fire and you can't plan from month to month. Oh, I'm going to show you all one thing that I'm very excited about that's sticker related. So, I got these new labels that are going to go out on all of the envelopes for the Personal Finance Society. And I have, like, little versions of these stickers. But, yeah, I think some of you, like, just recently joined Personal Finance Society, which means your stickers are on the way. And I'm doing another round. I had a couple people join this week, so I'm doing another round. But these labels I'm really excited about. I mean, you also get a sticker, but I'm just excited about the labels. I get very excited about things I can use to brand packaging, so. Jeremy says I got one of those. Yeah, that's maybe the one that's missing, so. Oh. Well, I hope everybody had a lovely evening. Thank you for coming and taking some time and joining with me and hearing way too much about my budget, but I hope it was interesting for people right now while I'm making so much money. I'm definitely playing in easy mode right now. So we'll see what happens with the what happens with, tuition and budget and everything. Have a lovely evening. I'm gonna head out to watch nachos. Well, watch RuPaul, eat nachos, and have a great evening. Stay hydrated. Wash your hands. Wear a mask when you go places, and stay safe. And I will see you all same time, same place next week. Bye.